Americans for Fair Taxation presents the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, president of Americans for Fair Taxation, and recorded by Bob Paxton, a volunteer with the Florida Fair Tax Educational Association. And now, this week's Chairman's Report.
Hello, I'm Bob Paxton with the AFFT Chairman's Report for Friday, January 17th, 2020. Another unnecessary problem for small business. According to a blog posted by Alfonso Serrana at Fundera.com, small businesses, those that employ fewer than 500 people and account for 99.7% of U.S. companies, do the following. According to the Small Business Administration, small companies create 1.5 million jobs annually and account for 64% of new jobs created in the United States. New businesses account for virtually all new job creation in the U.S. And a 2015 study by the Kauffman Foundation found that in the last 3 decades, the companies in their first year created 1.5 million jobs annually. Now, while there are exceptions, one of the things that most new small businesses have in common is that they are not well financed. As they grow, most of their income has to be reinvested back into the company. But as they grow, they also need to attract good employees. A business that has grown to a value of $500,000 is likely at a point where they want to attract an employee who can take on more responsibility. But in many cases, they're just not at that point where they can afford to offer the kind of salaries and benefits that their larger competitors can. So, what can these small businesses offer to a valuable employee that would induce him or her to accept a smaller salary and fewer benefits? Ownership. An employee who sees the growth potential in a business will be willing to stay there if they have an ownership interest in that business. Sounds simple. The employer wants to offer ownership, and the employee wants to accept it. This should be a win-win situation for both sides, but wait a minute. The income payroll tax system doesn't like this arrangement. If the business has grown to a value of $500,000 and the owner gives 20% to a key employee, that key employee has to report $100,000 as ordinary income in the year it was received and pay income tax on that amount. This means that for the key employee to receive 20%, he or she would have to pay the $20,000 to $30,000 in income tax and then hope that the 20% will be worth at least the $100,000. Now, wait a minute, you say. Isn't getting something worth $100,000 for just $20,000 or $30,000 a good deal? Well, yes, if the business continues to grow, but what if it doesn't? Logically, the key employee should be able to recover the income taxes paid in the year the business failed, but not under the income payroll tax system. You can only deduct $3,000 per year against your income. You pay the full amount of the tax in year 1, but then you can only deduct the full amount of the loss over 7 or more years. Well, you ask, don't many employees who work for large companies get stock options that don't generate any ordinary income, but let the employee later sell that stock and pay capital gains tax at a much lower rate than is charged for ordinary income? Well, the answer to that is yes, but if you fully comply with a very complex minefield of rules and regulations. A large business can pay tax counsel to draft the program to give stock to employees with no adverse tax consequences to the company or to the employee. However, many of these small businesses don't have this option. They're barely keeping the doors open and can't spend the necessary dollars on tax counsel. The ruling class is protecting big business. Now, one of the secrets that big businesses try to keep hidden is just how much they like the complexity of the present income payroll tax system. Now, this seems counterintuitive. Don't these big businesses recognize that the present income payroll tax system makes them less competitive in the world market, makes them employ fewer American workers, makes them pay American workers less, makes their products 12 to 20% more expensive to American consumers, and makes them concentrate not on producing more products at better prices, but on how to reduce their tax liability? Well, the officers of these big businesses are very smart people. They do see the benefits of the fair tax. However, most of these officers are not judged by the long-term performances of their companies, but by what it's doing now. They worry that removing their advantages under the income payroll tax system may cause a temporary drop in net income. Since most of these officers, like much of the Washington establishment and even the rest of us, have mortgages and children in college, they're primarily interested in keeping their jobs. They're concerned that they may lose their jobs during the transition period, even though they know that the fair tax is much better for everyone. In conclusion, the fair tax will take away jobs in industries that exist only to deal with the complexity of the present income payroll tax system, like income tax preparation companies. However, most other companies will see immediate growth with the fair tax, and many of the displaced workers will be hired by these companies that are now expanding. This will be particularly true for small businesses who no longer have to devote meager resources to trying to comply with the corrupt income payroll tax system. Since smaller businesses are responsible for so many U.S. jobs, this will increase job growth even more and require that employee wages and benefits increase. In short, the only people who lose in the short term are people who depend on the present income payroll tax system. And even these people will find opportunities to work in much more productive ways. What about IRS employees? Well, they'll be able to move laterally to other government offices. Now, wouldn't it be great if the best IRS auditors were transferred over to the DEA and started going after drug dealers who are hiding money? Like the impact of the automobile on the buggy whip industry, companies either change with the times and make new products, or they go out of business. Now, that's just a fact of the free market. Now, isn't it time that we demand the solution that benefits everyone? Pass the fair tax, the only truly fair tax.
This has been the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, President of Americans for Fair Taxation. Check back every week for news and information about the fair tax, and learn why the fair tax should replace our antiquated federal income tax system. If you'd like to receive a copy of the Chairman's Report in your inbox every week, sign up at fairtax.org.